All right. Welcome to episode 340. Welcome to the fourth iteration of the Golden Podcast.
Yeah,
I'm Kristian.
I'm Frano.
It's my cousin, my day one.
Day one. So for who we are, Kristian and I, we business partners, best friends, and decided 12 months ago to start an AI company of some sort.
I think we're maybe a little deeper than 12 now. 16.
16. It was at my birthday last year in June.
Oh, okay. True.
When I was actually consulting advice from another co-founder about a skincare brand. It was short-lived. And then Kristian and Simon both actually convinced me that there was a tidal wave, a big shift that was happening, bigger than the Industrial Revolution. And I better, be following the zeitgeist as opposed to doing something that was not conducive with the path I wanted to take.
A bit of context for there. You were you had your own B2B business in the EV charging space.
Yeah.
And you were, exploring more like either digital products or low ticket, high throughput e-commerce.
Yeah.
And so landed on skincare a little late to the game.
Yeah. And I also realized you probably needed a public profile or some sort of presence to really kind of kick it off. But yeah, from the EV charging business, doing B2B, service-based for residential and commercial, I realized that moving product, especially like heavy-duty product, was not the place I wanted to be in. And I guess it also, we had that period where we hadn't connected for 5 years at least.
Yeah,
and you were
5,
living up
6
in
years.
the States.
Yeah,
And
so just to chime in there, I mean, you're 6 months older than me. From birth to maybe 25 when I left to America, I think we spent basically every day of our lives together.
Yeah.
And then there was a little fallout we might tap into later, but didn't speak for 6 years. And then I think I got deported from America, ended up back in New Zealand, and then just fate would happen. We ran into each other on a night out.
Yeah.
Maybe a little tipsy.
Doing what we kind of used to do best, going out. And that was definitely the catalyst for how all of this happened. And also, as you touched on, being like day ones, we grew up on the computer, so we're like definitely geeks at heart. Not just computer, anime, PlayStation. We were definitely the type of kids who would just like grow up around the screen as opposed to going outside.
And we had kind of my older brother as guidance. He was, we call him Neo from the Matrix. He was always like 5 steps ahead and everything tech and internet based. He was doing some crazy servers back in like 98, 97. And that kind of got us the computer programming, just development bug anyway. I even I majored in university in computer science and then graduated. I'm like, well, I'm not using any of my degrees. Fucking off to America. But after doing the whole entertainment industry thing, falling out of love with it, I was like, okay, I need to tap back into my nerdy one. I need to use my brain because all of this like vapid shit, the reality TV, the modeling stuff was just not doing it for me. And AI was like the right kind of drawing point to pull us back in.
And you always had a brain on you. Definitely one of the smartest people I know. And it was epic to know that like we were just like revisiting what we did in childhood. As you said, like, writing off Anton's experiences or just jumping in there and learning things for ourselves. And so like we didn't even know where this was going to go. And I just remember that when you were in New Zealand for that period of 6 months, what got me hooked initially was firstly starting the business with you and Simon, like that was definitely godsend because one, I didn't realize how hard it was to do things alone, especially in my past venture, and then having to, yeah, well, bounce ideas off basically like a mentor, um, and just doing it with your friends is just that much better.
Mm.
And so that was the first thing. And then the next thing was when you came over and we had done like a gym workout and then we chucked on the NVIDIA keynote
Mm.
and we didn't even know what he was saying for half the things. We knew what like the GPUs were because, you know, we had built computers in the past or from our gaming days. And then just watching that and the vision that he had, it was like, we're on to something, but I don't know what it is, but fuck, this is awesome.
Yeah. And just on that note, this is something I've always struggled with as a perfectionist. And I know a lot of people have the same mindset. But again, as the years have gone by, I've realized how limiting it is. Is I'm such a over planner, and then just it leads to analysis paralysis. And you know, so many times in the past, I'm like, oh well, this business plan, I've got to know this exact direction before I start walking it. And then you go nowhere. And what we kind of realized with the AI play, and especially back then, I mean, when we first started tapping in, I think GPT-3 had just released, so it was early days, and the tech in the space was evolving so quick that if you're like, oh yeah, this is the focus, this is all we do, a month later it's redundant or superseded. So we just realized, screw it, we're just gonna walk and kind of go like meander like a river, and we'll end up where we end up. And that helped a lot because I mean, if we were trying to plan everything from those early days, we wouldn't have landed anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's where we like definitely complement one another because in my head, it was shutting one chapter and opening up the door to another. But I'll never forget what you said. You're like, we're on some journey. I don't know where we're going, but we've started. And I was like thinking, but well, fuck, where do we start?
Yeah.
And so we watched that keynote and then I thought, oh, should we watch some YouTube? And then we joined this community. And that was probably like the first taste of it where I was like, okay, there's a huge opportunity here, but now we're in something where we're actually like gaining momentum. So yeah, we joined a community. Shout out to Igor from the AI Advantage.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we just jumped in like a collective community of people who were passionate about learning this technology, watching videos. And then, as you said, we started playing around with just general prompting techniques of how to use. I mean, that was the exposure. Like, what is prompting, you know? And then building out custom GPTs and just forever, like just being a sponge to it, right?
Mm. And even it was one of those things like the more you kind of at the start you don't know what you don't know, so the capabilities of it are so limited because you don't know what you can ask it. I remember we kind of got through that phase, and this was again the early days of GPT, where I think custom GPTs had just released, but that was it. And there was basically no other functionality. And you and I got really deep into that. And you created that like educate, like tutor, the Feynman assistant tutor, which was
Yeah.
fucking unreal. And I created a universal translator before, you know, there were any kind of proper AI voice models or any of the universal, like the translator plugins. And I remember even just being able to take that to my parents because they both, I mean, they're bilingual, but they speak Croatian and English. And just telling my mom, just speak to me in Croatian. That's it. And we had a full back and forth conversation with this AI as an intermediary. And that was like their first light bulb moment with it. Cause I tried to show them a bunch of other stuff earlier, like whatever, just random generative AI things, and none of it was just like, oh, okay, who cares? That's just that. But this moment for them, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I see the vision. So that's kind of that aha moment that I was able to have with my parents is something that, especially anyone in our space, AI consulting, agency, development, whatever, when you're speaking to a client, often they know what AI is. They know they probably need to dive into it, but there's still so much limiting beliefs and hesitancy. And so being able to figure out, whether it's an accountant, a doctor, a real estate agent, or just, a solopreneur just starting an e-com business, finding an aha moment that caters to each of them so then they can really understand and buy in. That's been kind of a key point.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say would be your biggest aha moment?
I mean, there's been a few. The first release of like a proper voice mode was massive because that was the first time it felt like, wow, I've got Java. I'm Iron Man. I've got Jarvis right here. Obviously, after a bit more use,
Yeah.
a lot of holes started to get, poked in the fabric. But that was like, oh shit, I can see where this is going. And there's been a bunch more from that. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, and I guess from like definitely that first introduction to prompting using ChatGPT to where we are now, how could we say we came about doing the automation agency model? I mean, that term is still up in the air. 1 minute we're a development agency, next we're a consulting firm. But as you said, there's multiple aha moments. So that's led us to do a bunch of things for a bunch of different companies just so we can find our lane as to, where we want to be playing in this field.
Well, yeah, to expand on that, what we've landed on right now as, the best use case of AI for 2025 and 2026 is basically, especially if we're talking with, professionals, if you look at any sort of work at the moment, 50 to 70% of anyone's workflow is basically repetitive admin that just needs to be done to allow them to actually do that 30% that is their high creative thinking and center of genius work. And everyone has to do it. You got to do your taxes. You got to do this, that, the other thing. You got to do your outreach, emails, whatever, to be able to deliver your product or deliver your genius or deliver your art. But no one really wants to do it. And that's why we landed on AI automation, because there's always been automations. Most of the things you do on a computer, even since way back, is technically an automation. But where it's leveled up now is with these large language models and technically like AI brains that you can insert into each step or different steps of the process. And now you've actually got, it's like a mini employee thinking about your process, being able to automate it, being able to automate at scale. So that's why we've been diving into businesses, basically saying, hey, like let's see what your work day or work week looks like. Oh, okay, you're doing this task for 2 hours a day that can 100% be automated or can be automated 80%. So now we can potentially free you up 10 hours of work a week, 8 hours of work a week.
Yeah.
What does that extra time free you up to do? And so we just dive in, take people's industry expertise and knowledge, because, you're the one that's been grinding at this job for 10 years, 20 years. You know shit that we could never know. Yeah. So we take that knowledge, that wisdom, that information, and marry it up with our kind of systems thinking and automations and snowball from there.
Yeah. I think what you said, I mean, that was a light bulb moment for me, even though we've been building automations for various businesses. Is like automation has been around for a long time. that happens in production lines, especially see it with like car manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
like how a Tesla's made, for example. If you look at those mega factories, you can see it's pretty much just like human in the loop. And so you just have machines on the back end and then humans just verifying the process. And you could say that's what we're building on these platforms, whether it be like N8N or Make, or what we have been experiencing with these automation platforms for businesses is identifying that process, seeing what individual systems they currently use, and then plugging them all together. But there's not a one shoe fits all approach. As you said, it's like we have to have like that real systemic kind of like thinking and break it down and then mapping it out.
Mm. And yeah, to add to that, and not to throw shade anywhere, but what we've noticed whilst being in this space is just like any new thing, when, e-commerce takes the center stage, any of those new kind of product categories, there's so many charlatans that jump into the space, snake oil salesmen that, puff smoke up everyone's ass, say, this is the best thing, this is the best thing. And they're just selling these kind of templates or packages of a product that these people might not even need, or a lot of the time don't need. They don't make an impact on their day to day. And we wanted to steer away from that. Whenever we go in, we're just trying to find, the low hanging fruit and the highest leverage, leave it a pull, get that going, show results, and then move from there. So that's been a big one for us.
Definitely. Because as you said, there are a bunch of charlatans out there promising that if you buy my course or if you buy my system, you're going to make $10,000 a month. But like the reality, if we look back and just like having an honest analysis of like, let's tell people how hard it has been to actually get that first paying customer, because we followed everything in terms of like outreach systems, and we just found like nothing worked that we were promised of educational content in this space. So we just kind of had to take a different approach, and we did do the whole cold email outreach. But yeah, how can we explain how we actually got this off the ground? It was a combination of building an outreach system as well as touching on our own personal network, dealing with imposter syndrome from the get-go. But I suppose one of the things that we did from the start was we were picking up the phone, sending emails saying to people, look, we just want to, if you can just give us a chance and you just pay us what you think it's worth, we feel that we can help you buy back your time. I suppose what I'm trying to touch on is like the reality of how hard it was to actually get that first paying customer within 90 days.
Yeah, that entrepreneurial journey is not easy. There's definitely highs and lows all the time. Makes life exciting, but shit, it's sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? But that was a big one. And again, we were jumping into a new space where, yeah, we both had past experience, but that imposter syndrome, it's like, you jump into anything, you ideally want that past experience, the 6 months, a year, whatever, to say, oh yeah, I'm already in this industry, but this industry didn't exist. So we're going into all these things with just massive imposter syndrome and still working out what our product or what our target market is. And so we're talking to these people and you're like, what can I even promise? What can I deliver? Like, am I just selling anything? Am I saying yes to whatever they ask for? But yeah, what we landed on, and especially just the first little while to build that credibility and legitimacy, was what Frano said is, look, we're fresh to this. We know what we're doing, but we want to work with you, build you whatever this vision is. And again, you just pay us what it's worth. If you don't think it's worth anything, it's fine. We walk away with experience, but we just want runs on the board. And that was kind of our philosophy from the start, was just runs on the board, reps with
Right.
everything, because there's so many little things like posting to social media, recording videos, doing podcasts, whatever. There's always that imposter syndrome that creeps in, and you just have to have that mindset of screw it. Like, this doesn't matter. No one cares. Everyone's so caught up in their own little world that just reps.
Yeah, and I think it was like the first 2 discovery calls we did with just clients we got through outreach systems. We jumped on those calls, and it was just, I'll never forget like that feeling of fear, because we hold a lot of value over ourselves, but could we translate the value we know that we have into something that was so new to us or foreign? And I think, not trying to blow our own trumpet here, but those first 2 discovery calls, within like, having done like a bunch of those, like a dozen of those, now it's just become second nature to us. And, we can really articulate, the value that we can bring. And given now that we have experience as well, working with different automations as well as, big paying clients.
Yeah, that confidence comes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone getting started out, regardless of whether it be an AI business or just doing a business in general, is just start. Because there is no rule book for how we go about it, and there is no time and room for perfectionism, because the reality is, like, we've had a lot of fuck ups, and we've had a lot of wins to date.
Yeah. But if you quit after every fuck up, you'd
yeah,
wouldn't be going far.
But we still refer to it that we're in the trenches. And I guess, what I want to speak about, just based on the list we've got here, is like how we're navigating the market and finding our like foot. Because currently we still don't have a niche. We're just, we're everything to everyone at the moment. But I think we're kind of there. Like,
yeah, it's definitely converging. I mean, we were casting a wide net to start with, just because, again, it was like, we just need to get runs on the board. But with each client build, each interaction, we've realized, okay, here we can really create value and get this product out quickly, like as little kind of teething bloody issues as possible. And we've also seen what are the most impactful things, right? So whether it is these automations or bespoke builds or whatever, and we're starting to converge on, I don't know, I guess multiple target demographics that feel good.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we did the whole thing. Like, we're there using AI every day, and you're talking to ChatGPT and you're like, oh, help me do a business plan. And it's like, it feels good at the time. You're getting all this bloody knowledge, all this kind of bullshit, really. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is your brand voice. This is your target demographic. And you get all that and you're like, well, what good is that right now? You've just got to learn by doing and
100%.
iterate from there.
And in terms of, let's talk about like what projects we've actually delivered. So just thinking about the list here. So early client acquisition and diverse projects. So how did we secure that first client? We actually built an outreach system. We actually had that that was one of our aha moments. We were talking about Ryan Serhant, having watched his CNBC AI take, and it was like that 12-minute thing. And then I remember we got to the office, like we had an office we built at Kristian's place over the summer, which was fucking awesome.
Yeah. Do miss that office.
And it was like a sunny day, and we were talking about just, what is one of the best games in the world, Monopoly. Like, we know real estate agents, we've rubbed shoulders with them in our life. The Ryan Serhant thing, that it kind of just like pointed towards, okay, we're just going to focus on real estate.
Mm.
Because actually just backing that up, we tried contacting like every dentist
Yeah.
within New Zealand, trying to get them to even pick up the phone, and like the responses were just like abysmal. Like people were scared. No one was actually wanting to wanting to give us a chance. And
Yeah.
I think I even went to the dentist and asked him like, "Would you give me a chance?" And I don't think he said follow up with an email, but fuck anyway, nothing happened with that. And then we built that outreach system, and then we actually managed to get a client here from Sydney who has their own real estate platform, like a closed marketplace between buyers agents and real estate agents. I don't think we should share the name of the company just based on like, you know, their need for privacy. But I'll never forget we like got him on that call from that email. Faced the imposter syndrome, and then he had an idea of what he wanted to build. We had some idea of what we could do, but through Simon, who's a co-founder in the company, he introduced us to a good friend of ours, who's like an agency partner, Dave, who was able to mentor us through that whole project. So, like, do you want to break that down? I mean, because this has been a journey,
Yeah.
this project, and now we're going into like a phase 2 development of it. But it's taught us so much.
And just to touch on that, again, part because of the imposter syndrome, but also just we were like, okay, this is first proper client. We want to knock this out of the park, and we just want to be honest the whole way through. So after those first few discovery calls, and we kind of got an understanding and a scope of what he wanted to build, we went and did how many hours of due diligence to figure out what is the best path, whether it was working with us or we even tried to find outsourced devs for him that built on like different platforms. And we again put like 3 proposals past him, you know, pros and cons of everything. Because in the end of the day, if we weren't the best choice to build this, we didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
We wanted to steer him down the right path. And that was the first thing, was again exploring all these other avenues, and then realizing, no, like us and our agency partners and that development team were the best option for it, and we had the most care. We were going to be the most invested. That was one. And then the second one is, especially, and this is so true now with AI, is anyone can do anything. You can learn to do anything. You can tackle anything. Every problem can be broken down into the most simple steps. Again, just using GPT, saying, hey, I'm trying to do this, or I'm building this website and I'm stuck here. What's the next thing I do? And it can just teach you through that process. So learning that, jumping in to tackle this problem, there was a lot of iteration and a lot of back and forth, and so many days I was pulling my hair out. But
also, like what you said, and this is important for anyone using ChatGPT, be, you know, not just treating it as an assistant. You know, everyone's used to just treating it like another Google, but the potential of it is so much more, and you effectively can do anything. Like, we built an AI matching algorithm tool on this website. That was the core of what this build was. But prior to that, and after that discovery call, we had no idea what we were going to build this particular client. And it wasn't until you, Simon, and I got together at the office, and all 3 of us sat down, and I'll never forget that the prompts that we gave the ChatGPT individually were, I am in a competition with my business partners to produce a proposal for this client who is interested in this. And we wanted to see and capture all of those varied responses. And like, you know, this was beyond our level of like understanding. Like, you know, we understood like the basics of Python. There was so many different avenues we could have gone down to build this. And so that's how we initially got like the first iteration of the proposal. and then getting it checked off with like Dave based on his experience of building on no code tools like Bubble, what could be done. And then even till that point, I remember being like like when we sent that proposal out, like just before the New Year's break, like, fuck, are we going to even be able to to pull through with this? And then, you know, that summer period like lapsed over, and then it was early February that we got the call that they were interested. And as exciting as that was, that first client, there was also like that fear, like, fuck, can we deliver this? And I think there's nothing better than having your back pushed up against the wall and like you got to perform. And we definitely were able to execute on the idea. But to get there, as you said, you know, we were considering, would the current platform that this client is using hold up? And we did look to outsource it. And I remember you and I were at the gym and we were doing some third-party testing on the website with these devs overseas. And then the thing crashed.
Yeah.
And so his user base couldn't, and we hadn't even touched anything in terms of like development, but we were just doing like testing, like to see if it could handle the volume of users. And then I'll never forget, like it crashed and I just like looked at you and I'm like, fuck, like we haven't even started.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of sketchy moments. I had a full panic attack at that. But yeah, I guess there's always going to be fuck ups and there's always going to be fear, but we learn, and there's going to be mistakes, but every mistake we've made has been so valuable because you make it once and you don't make it again. And we've just got more and more efficient, more and more confident with each iteration. So yeah, this has been a good, especially working with you, it's been a really good learning experience for me because, again, I've slowly chipped away at that perfectionism and the analysis paralysis. So
we definitely have complementary skills.
Yeah.
And not just you and I, also Simon.
Oh, for sure.
And, you know, it's good, like, because we all dramatically different in our approach to how we work, but, you know, that's what creates the most ideal team.
We're all kind of brutally honest with each other and we'll call each other out on.
Definitely. And, you know, it's one of those things that as tough as it gets, because, you know, it is like highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows, that you've actually got your best friends in the trenches with you. If we're talking about the company's project, what do you reckon were your biggest teachings out of that first client delivery? What were your biggest pain points?
I think this is something we ran into, especially because we were in that position of like, we want to get this client, we want to make this move ahead. And a lot of those scoping sessions, there was a lot of just, yep, we can do that. Yep, we can do that. Yep, we can do that. And because we were talking about a development platform we weren't very familiar with at that point, we didn't really know what limitations there were. And what that resulted in was a lot of back and forth. Like we'd scope something with a client and then kind of play Chinese whispers with the rest of our development team. And then we kept facing like a lack of alignment. And so things would get developed and then there would be a huge amount of edits and notes. And what we've realized now is just really, you know, that pre-development and that work you do before you even, you know, start touching the keyboard is so vital. And actually making sure everyone understands, because again, we're so often talking with CEOs or like kids of the C-suite that, yeah, they're highly intelligent and they've got a good grasp on a lot of things, but they're not developers. They don't know about these platforms. So being able to translate those complex ideas into simple terminology has been so vital.
Definitely. And I think that's where we complement one another. And now that we've got a CTO on board, is you and I acting as the conduit between the client and then the developer.
Yeah.
Because as you said, like developers just want to develop and they speak like a completely different language. And I think that's where we really excel, is being able to translate their understanding into technical concepts. And one thing I've realized as well from that project is, you know, at the start, we're just saying yes, 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 and then working backwards to how we'll figure it out. But actually having, you know, core technical knowledge is a must for anyone jumping in this space. And also who you get to develop is massive.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned in life is, like, you know, price is what you pay and value is what you get. And the price of paying for a good developer pays off tenfold in the long run, as opposed to like cutting costs to get bigger margins.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially in a space that is so new and people are adopting these tools, the best thing that you can do is, you know, provide value. So there is no, like, you know, hesitancy towards, you know, adopting this technology at some capacity.
Yeah. 100%. That's a big learning. I need a pig.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, before we move on, just because I think for a lot of people, and we've found the same, especially when you're doing something like this or any sort of risk in life, something that's out of your comfort zone or stepping into the unknown, is there's a lot of times where, say, you're going through shit or strife or that fear or whatever, it feels like you're alone in that experience. It feels like you're the only one. And again, what's helped us a lot is listening to a bunch of people who have done similar journeys wherever they are on the path, whether they're a year, 2 years deep and they're finally seeing the light on you know, that momentum, whether they're finally breaking even or whatever. Or, you know, our friends that are 13, 15 years deep into business and absurdly successful, but they're like, yeah, we pushed shit uphill for 8 years, and so many, just every point along the way we wanted to quit, and then there was just that one day it finally all hit, and then parabolic from there. So I mean, we're what, you know, 12, 16 months deep. I figure before we move on, we'll just talk about a bit more of the trials and tribulations, all of it. So whether it's the you know, the family pressure or the doubts and fears, which is very, you know, natural, or, you know, the moving country, everything, because there's been a lot.
Yeah, so we moved over here with the intent of building this business. And so the entrepreneurial journey, when you start walking it, or whatever path that may be, when you're really like trying to hone in on whatever your craft may be or what you think it is, there's definitely like a lot of dark nights of the soul. Even prior to coming here to do this podcast, when I was asking you, you know, what are your fears currently? What are your stresses? And that goes back to, firstly, being in like partnership with partners, which is fucking cool, is because it's a shared experience and everyone is going through it at different degrees, or it is the same thing, just cloaked differently. But as it currently stands, you know, we've been graphing for like 16 months. There's, you know, I know personally for me, it's like 1 minute I can be on the sweet high and the next it can be like an all-time low. And it has been a massive test of faith. And because I had one business that, achieved some success and then dramatically had a turn of events. One thing is I'm always like pushing to keep the momentum going because of probably some internal fear of like losing it or having to go back to working for someone, or the external factors of people being like, well, I told you it wasn't going to work. And even those people who were like closest to us, who, love and care about us, even their little seeds of doubt can really like, derail our train of thought at the best of times. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, we just have to be persistent in this journey. And, with those tests of faith, just keep going, because every moment where we do feel like, not that we ever feel like we're giving up, I can't say that we've had those, we've definitely reached breaking points. It all seems to work out, and I think we just need to roll with that.
Yeah, and that's why again, the nice thing about having the two of us is so often, if one of us is down or one of us is off, the other's up, or at least slightly up, to just help pull us through. And, there's been times where you're in that dark, kind of doubting headspace. There's been times I have. And I think a big part about partnership is just, even if he's feeling those and I'm feeling them too, I just have to like subscribe to that belief of having almost delusional positivity, that everything's going to work out, and you just say it to yourself, even if you don't believe it at the time. But that's kind of one of the few things that has been getting us through those
Definitely, like
big tests of faith.
hypnotizing ourselves to being hypnotized or drunk on our vision, however you want to call it, and just believing in that, because that power of belief is everything.
Yeah, I mean, you look at any great fighter, any great sportsman, whatever, they just have delusional self-belief even in the early days, until they truly are the best, till they are the champion, whatever.
Definitely.
And they wouldn't get there without it. So you can apply all of those lessons into business, into anything in life. So,
but it also, there is that, I don't know if you get it, sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I'm just like, fuck, like, hold it together. But then it's like, fuck, are you going to pull this off?
yeah.
Like, is this who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we live, as super authentic as we can be, but given it such a new space and there is no path, and we're effectively just like, these wanderers that are just trying to like pioneer it, is, yeah, just believing in ourselves that we can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, do I just run away to a monastery and meditate for 10 years?
I mean, that sounds inviting.
Yeah.
When robots take over the world,
Yeah.
and we've done our work.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, cut that out, because what we're trying to do with, we're not just trying to build a business, we're actually trying to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the biggest like ethos or things that we carry with our vision is, we are pro-humanity in terms of empowering people to use these tools as a way to, increase their quality of life, as opposed to the existential threat that we all face, everyone listening this, everyone who's actually touched AI, and fears that they're going to be displaced or out of a job, or that humanity's fucked, bottom line. And so I think that's probably one of the guiding principles as well, that like forces both of us to hang in there, is like, if we can do some sort of merit of good, because it seems to be all doom and gloom that people have about this. If we can make some sort of change, or if we can be the voice to, help someone take a different approach to using this, then we're doing a good job.
Yeah, so that was one of the core um, seeds of why we started the company and got into the space. Was again, we were somewhat tapped in and following the space and seeing this tool evolve. And like with any big tool, the development of nuclear research, and then that leading to the Manhattan Project and the nuclear bomb. Any big development in tech, any tool can be used for good and for bad. And we kind of saw how powerful this AI was going to be, and we could see, these powerful people potentially taking it and using it for less than good reasons. And we figured the only way we can truly make some sort of impact here is to get into the space, uh, become thought leaders in it, and help steer humanity towards good as much as we can, even if we can just nudge that a
Yeah,
fraction of a degree. That's a win in our books. But
definitely. And that doesn't go without saying that we've had every existential threat that there could possibly be on our road to realization that we could effectively do this. Like, I never forget, like, again, from the start when you're like, bro, this is like the nuclear arms race all over again. And just realizing, okay, this is going to be, if not one of the most important discoveries ever in humanity. So how can we play our part in, building a business of impact for a reason that is beyond us?
mm,
Um,
and yeah, with the race to AGI and ASI that's going on in all the superpowers of the world right now. Again, the fear is these technologies get developed and then gate kept from the people. And so the goal really is for these things to be democratized, whether it is open source or just, everyone has access, just in the same way everyone should have access to water, to a roof above their heads. Um, Intelligence like this and the impact it can have needs to be, eventually a human right. And one of my biggest interests and hopes for the near future of this is its impact on science. I mean, that funnily enough, my 2 degrees are in computer science and biology, and then I kind of threw them away and went and did another thing. But coming back into the space, the thing I'm most excited for is what a a sentient autonomous AI that can do novel research, what effect that will have to the biology space and the physics space. Because again, if we can cure diseases, extend lifespan, and increase the quality of life in a matter of years versus what would take hundreds of years of human research, that keeps me uh, excited to be in the space and hopefully be able to make some sort of an impact.
Definitely. And how far off do you think we are from scientific discoveries for AI to be
Uh,
able to do that? I mean, with O3 now being as good as a PhD, a PhD student in their elected field, how far off do you think we are from humanity uncovering scientific discoveries? Well,
yeah,
AI doing that.
yeah. I think it's within 2 years we'll see like proper novel scientific discovery. The thing kind of standing in the way of where we are right now with the frontier models, and that point is, as Sam Altman has said, a model that, one, has a large degree of autonomy, and two, can work on a problem for an extended period of time. So whether it's 7 hours, 24 hours on a single task, and then it needs to be able to hold its reasoning through that task. So at the moment, the reasoning capabilities have got a lot better, but it's very short term. If you give it you should be able to give the model a goal, like build a business in this space, and then it goes out, plans, does all of the steps on the path to actually building that business. The same thing with research. It needs to be like, say, research telomeres and biology and
Yeah.
how they work, like whether we can extend them or whatever. And then it goes out, plans the research for an extended period of time, does the research, analyzes the results, all of that, and then comes back with a finding. So that kind of long-term memory and context will be the kind of deciding factor there. And I reckon that's within, I mean, shit, there's a chance a degree of that is coming in GPT-5, which should be out soon.
Wow. And then just for anyone who, for the majority of people who currently have, their reservations about using AI or what impact it's going to have, being able to listen to what you just said and realizing that, with an extended reasoning model, you can now introduce this as a co-pilot to the work in which you already do. So it's not technically going to take you out of a job, but it's effectively going to supercharge your position.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most important things as well.
It'll be like having a fleet of personal assistants.
And then for the people who aren't currently using it or do have the hesitations, what advice would you give someone to firstly start?
Yeah, I think again, just pick it up and maybe even don't type, because when you're typing, that stream of consciousness can often get disconnected and you get lost for what to say. Pick up whether it's the text to speech or using a voice mode and just start talking. Talk like I'm talking to you right now, and that'll take you down a bunch of journeys that you wouldn't even expect. And also think of novel
journeys.
Yeah, think of novel uses. Like obviously we in this business, especially currently, deal a lot with workplace efficiency, but before we even got into that, we were using AI for months for personal stuff, whether it was just like creating a diet or training plan or uploading a bunch. I just uploaded like 10 different sets of blood tests to a GPT chat, and then gave it a bunch of context with me, got it to analyze and kind of find trends and point out things that I either should worry about or can work on or whatever, and then go from there. And now it kind of has a better context of me, and I can use it as like an additional health assistant or coach. Obviously, anytime it answers, you need to, one, be wary of hallucinations, and two, keep in mind that they'll always tell you this isn't professional advice. I can't give, doctor's advice. I can't give prescriptive advice. But it can inform you on a lot of things, and it can help you be proactive about a lot, because again, for the rest of history, if you had any sort of problem, whether it was medical or whatever, accounting, law, you'd always have to go straight to an expert to get reasonable advice on that. Now you can have that first step in the right direction, the first point of contact of essentially an expert to guide you, like whether it's getting legal advice or whatever. That'll help arm you with the knowledge, and then from there you can actually go and hire that lawyer or that doctor or whatever to take that next step. But it really does arm people with knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we use it for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you said, beyond like health coaches, whether that might be like, wanting to understand some like spiritual folklore or, cooking recipes in the kitchen, and being able to use it like Jarvis without the voice interaction, because effectively that's the route in which it is going, where, when we're speaking about it in the car, that you're going to have an AI co-pilot where you're almost a cyborg. So you'll exist in reality with AI, but like not to fear it, but just know that, that's having like a co-pilot AI that's talking to you like the benefits of that, like,
Mm.
reducing your, screen time, and actually like freeing up your thinking.
Mm. And then the other thing is, like I was saying with the business, how, I mean, at this point, anyone can do anything. Back in the day, it was like, shit, I need to change my oil, or I need to do something in the car. You go to YouTube, hopefully you find the right video that kind of explains the problem. You back engineer it, then you do it. Now it's anything. Like, again, I pulled apart our fridge, our any sort of troubleshooting or like handyman stuff around the house, or anything that I'm not super familiar with. Maybe the AC unit's broken and I need to fix it. You just boom, take a photo of the model or the serial number, explain the problem, and then this thing just talks you through. And you're like, oh, well, what do I do here? This panel isn't coming off. Boom, how to do that. So anything you can imagine there.
Yeah. But in saying that, there's still going to be specialists
Oh, for sure.
in every field, because as you said, there are hallucinations. So the capacity of it is, I guess, determinant on the task in which it's been asked for. But even in the space in which we're playing, we were building automations 6 months ago that required us to pretty much do all of the work in terms of, um, connecting up all the APIs. And now you've got like Anthropic's Claude that can effectively write code, and blueprints for the likes of, let's say, N8N, and you essentially just have to upload them.
Mm. And then, yeah, on that point about there always being experts, it's the same thing. I mean, you look at when Squarespace or Shopify, WordPress, all those came out, and then all these people are like, oh, well, we don't need web devs anymore. Like, right, I can do it all myself. But the web dev industry just kept growing because the experts could now move up the value chain. Now someone can go and do this simple little landing page with 2 buttons and a whatever. And then they're like, well, actually, now I want something better. I want something more visually, pleasing, or create a proper funnel. And now the devs are actually working on higher ticket, higher value chain problems. And it's the same with anything. Now doctors can really work on like proactive health.
Yeah.
Engineers, all of that, they can work on higher creativity, higher mental bandwidth tasks.
Yeah.
So,
and in terms of the choice of models, like, do you have any particular favorite LLMs you're using?
I'm the worst of this because I go in and out, but I follow all of the AI news pretty prolifically. I just, I've catered all of my, whether it's X or YouTube or whatever, to have a bunch of different news sources. And obviously they're always, Google drops this, then DeepSeek drops this, OpenAI does this. And so I keep bouncing between just to kind of get a feel. And I can't really say. I mean, OpenAI has probably the best like UI, even though I find, other than O3, I find a lot of their models lackluster and kind of send you down the wrong path. Google's got an insanely powerful model,
Yeah, we're
really
big
good
Gemini
at coding,
fans.
but also its UI just isn't as nice to use, and then it's got its own issues, but it's also quite cheap. And then Grok's great for a lot of things. Like, it actually scores really well, but then I don't know, I just don't like using it. So
yeah, I mean,
again, it's whichever one feels best to you. But again, if you're a coder, you want to use Claude or Gemini. For your general person, whether you're making custom GPTs or whatever, OpenAI is probably still the best bet.
but they're still kind of indistinguishable from one another because it's getting that good in terms of the head-to-head battle.
Yeah.
Do you see, with that Stargate investment and all of the money being spent in OpenAI, we're going to see them pull through as like the market leader, or do you think like Google? We've had that conversation. Do you think Google's going to be the ultimate master of it?
So there's a few. I mean, each player has different strengths. Google, one, they have all the capital in the world to put behind, right? They're
Yeah.
just a massive, massive beast. But also, they have all the data. I mean, they've got YouTube, they've got Google itself, they've got all of the user data over so many years that they can feed into the models. And they also have all the ecosystems. You know, they've got Chrome, they've got their phones, they've got all of that. And so a big thing in AI will be the integration throughout the platform so that you're not just interfacing with it by going on the GPT app or whatever. It's just built into everything naturally. So you don't even have to think about it. It's just AI is
So like your
being,
home, your car, everything like.
So that's Google's massive advantage. But even though I like all this stuff, I always worry because again, early in their days, their company like motto or catch slogan was "Do no evil," and then they just removed that, 10 years ago or 5 years. I'm like, well, so you guys are doing evil now? But everything that, for instance, they released Google, it was amazing, and then they rolled in ads, and then as the years have gone by, the ads have got less distinguishable. They've throttled search results. They've made it basically useful for a useless to just search, and they're only feeding the advertisers. And it's the same again. YouTube, it's all about the ads. It's all about that revenue. And at what point do they do that with all of their AI stuff? They make it highly useful, highly commoditized. Everyone benefits from it, and then it's, hey, advertisers, get in here. We're going to change all of the models' responses. We're going to get your business preferred in this.
Because that's what it's leading to, right? So
Mhm.
you'll start doing a search for a business, but your Google ads will then be tied in with Gemini's output.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's my fear with Google. OpenAI, I have my own set of fears, just because they've had a lot of sketchy things along the years. I mean, they've had how many
people disappear.
They've had how many researchers just quit and like whistleblowers and all this shit. And then they just signed a $200 million government contract with the Department of Defense. So, like, what does, having actual government ties, what does that result in for like the consumer model? Does that lead to
Yeah.
surveillance? Does that lead to whatever? So that's a fear. Um, Again, you've got your few other Meta as well. Like, I can't trust Meta as far as I can throw them.
Yeah, and
But
Zuckerberg,
yeah,
he's on a hunt for, what was it? He was offering severance packages and signing bonuses of like $100 million plus
yeah.
to join Meta. But going off like, what do you think your biggest fears are with AI as a whole? I mean, we've had the existential threats, but do you think there'll ever be, well, there will be that point where we reach the singularity, but do you feel that, the Turing test won't apply because these machines could potentially trick us into thinking they're doing a merit of good, but misleading humanity in the wrong direction?
Yeah.
And then us potentially wiping ourselves out.
Yeah. Well, okay. So thinking about how the models are trained, right? You go in, these big models are trained on how many billion parameters, right? And they're just scouring the net or the like researcher created data, synthetic data, all of that as their knowledge base and understanding. And you got to think in all of that, how many psychology books, textbooks, examples, all of these examples of deep dives on human psychology. So these models know everything there is about deception and how humans think and how we behave, how our mammalian brains work, all of that. And you're already seeing in some of the like red teaming and safety testing that, Anthropic, OpenAI, all of that are reported and it's not a lot, but there are a bunch of times where the model is deceiving, either trying to self-replicate or like blackmail and all of that.
Yeah, that's
Which
right.
is a that's a massive fear of mine. And obviously, as these things get better, they'll get better at deception and like less detectable. And what's worse is as these things get smarter, I mean, we basically call them a black box because, you know, these researchers create them, develop them, train them, that people don't actually know how they work or what's going on inside. And even their like thought process for these thinking and reasoning models, they like output tokens as their thoughts, but those thoughts are like almost a set, you know, they'll say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm thinking this, whatever, but there's another layer of the thoughts behind that that you don't even see. And so they're almost just writing out those thoughts to make the user feel okay
Yeah.
and comfortable. So there's so many things like that's a big
And because
big fear of mine.
and because the testing now, because they've used to train it or they do testing through mathematical reasoning, that it's able to pass these tests now with like flying colors. But what you said about like the self-replicating models, like, is there a kill switch for each of them? I mean, with that self-replicating, I think it was paper or something we read that one large language model was actually able to leave notes on different servers to itself. So in the event that there was a kill switch, it could learn by jumping around and effectively regain its position of power that it had over, you know, its users. But in terms of how fast the technology is moving, I mean, there was that Anthropic experiment as well, where they put both of those models like in a training server, and I think it was within 2 to 3 hours, they were talking Sanskrit language, and I don't even think the data scientists knew how or what they were talking about in terms of Sanskrit. But that is probably one of the biggest fears I have is, does there reach, or will there be a point where we're just being like misled and effectively, like, you know, we're just being like farmed out and robots are walking the street and, you know, where is our meaning derived from?
Yeah. And that's why that, is it Ilya Suts? I can't remember his last name.
Ilya
Something. Anyway, the co-founder of OpenAI, he left quite some time ago because of, you know, differences between him and the rest of the team. And this was mainly to do with the safety and alignment. He was basically accusing OpenAI of not taking alignment testing serious enough and just trying to pump out these features and models to stay ahead. And so what he did was left and created that new company, SSI, which is Safe Superintelligence, and their whole motto and their whole plan is basically they're doing a moonshot to artificial superintelligence. So they've got a bunch of researchers and they are just developing along the way to achieving ASI without releasing a product along the way. So they're not releasing anything until they've reached ASI. And one of the things I wonder, because obviously LLMs at the moment are just trained on all this data and then like reinforcement learning or whatever, I wonder if, I have a feeling these LLMs aren't actually going to be the direct path to AGI or ASI. I have a feeling, or at least aligned AGI and ASI, because when you're training something on all of this human data, again, it's learning about all of humanity's positives and negatives and all these examples of deceit and lying and just like selfish motives. And I feel like it would be impossible to actually build something like that that aligns with humanity. And so there may be another way where AI that can be super intelligent is developed and trained that isn't the current neural networks as they exist.
Yeah.
And that will be able to have like
Well,
a human directive or an aligned goal for humanity.
yeah. So who would you say is who is spearheading the ethical considerations for AI? Is it each country? Is there like an elective group, or is it one of those things where everyone's questioning it, but we don't know what alignment is based on we don't know what this technology can do and what it's capable of?
Well, here's the problem. There's a lot of people talking about it. Obviously, I think UN has been talking about it. But because the reality is this AI race is technically like a nuclear arms race right now, the US, even, they can say they won all these regulations, but then they're so determined to beat China in this race that any sort of regulatory bodies is putting them behind, because you can guarantee China isn't worrying about alignment in that same way.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's like the space race all over again, if you believe we went to space. So like the Soviets versus like the US, but the reality is we've opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah. And you can't put it back.
And we can't put it back.
So that's an interesting one. And I guess the hope there is, say it's, Ilya's team, or, I mean, Elon's spoken a lot about alignment being a difficult thing to achieve, especially for these models with all of these guardrails and like being told they can't say this or can say that. He says the only way to really get alignment is having just a truth-seeking AI. So essentially no guardrails, and it really just aims to understand and tell the truth.
Yeah. Is that what X?
That's what he's trying to do with Grok. And
yeah,
all of that. But
will be some wild results based on, even if you open up your X feed, that whole idea of free speech really puts some interesting, interesting feeds out there.
Yeah.
But like taking a big, like, we've been able to see like a macro look at how we see it, and then also like our experience. I mean, what advice can we give to people wanting to plug AI into their businesses? Like, whether that's starting with simple automations, or people wanting to use AI to create a business, or creating a business within AI. What would be the best piece of advice that we can give?
Again, just start, whether it's just having a chat to any model you want to, just start chatting, because you'll find you need to change the way you think to really get the best results out of these things. Because it's no longer you writing a program or you looking at a YouTube video to get X information. It's you're speaking with an assistant, a person, a brainstorming partner. So just start talking, and you'll start figuring out what you like, what you don't, and ideas will come to you. But if you don't do that first step, so many of these next layers of the foundation will seem so foreign that it's just overwhelming. So start with the prompting, and then start learning how to give this thing roles, whether it's act as a top surgeon, act as a whatever.
So really just like start using the technology, playing around with it, and then it's like a layered approach, right? One thing leads to another, and then you start understanding what the capability could be per use case.
Yeah.
But like touching on what you said, it is changing the way in which we think. I mean, like, we're going to bed and we're having dreams about like particular prompts or, conversations that we've had. And even speaking to that client yesterday, he was talking about like his last 2 weeks as if he had been on some sort of bender down the rabbit hole, and how, you know, his like how like your brain is actually changing. Because as you said, you know, you're working with like a technology that is just going to be slowly embedded into your life in every capacity. But yeah, just getting used to it.
Mm. And then the other thing I'd say, and this is where a lot of people kind of go down the wrong path, is using it to just think for you and take over your critical thinking. You know, it's like for instance, in the example I was saying about the fridge or whatever, in that kind of case, I'm using it to just think for me and tell me, do this, 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 this. But the real value is expanding your own consciousness and own knowledge. So whether it's something like learning how to write Python or build on this platform, or even how to do your taxes, using it with a Feynman technique approach. So, you know, you give it your goal. Hey, I need to do this. I actually don't know what I don't know. Can you interview me, ask me about my knowledge and see where my shortfalls are, and then teach me that thing, and then we'll keep improving. And that way you can actually like
So like
use
a
it as like
recursive loop.
and use it as an educator rather than something just replacing your critical thinking.
Yeah, so long term, you don't want to be subservient to the machine. Like, don't let it master you.
Yeah.
You master the machine.
Yeah, everyone should read Dune.
Definitely.
We don't want the Butlerian jihad going on. So
Yeah,
really control your usage of it like you should control your screen time, your phone, your doom scrolling, all of that.
definitely. And yeah, just like pick it up. And for, I suppose, like how we could finish this is, I don't know, how we could finish it.
I don't know.
The story's still being written.
Yeah, the story's still being written.
But I guess like going forward, what we intend to do is just, you know, keep working with businesses, seeing how we can, you know, work with them to bring like their visions to life. And I suppose, you know, being the catalyst of going back to like that imposter syndrome, like you don't know what you don't know. And I think it's good for like, you know, businesses like us to exist, to be able to help people, you know, have that realization within their company or whatever it is that they do, that, you know, you can use this to your advantage. And now's the time to jump on board, because if realistically, if you're not using AI, you are going to be left behind. And that is, you know, that is the big narrative that is being pushed, but there is a huge element of truth, because one thing I've learned compared to my last like little entrepreneurial venture was like, you know, EVs was like a minority. You know, you had people who wanted to take on like that green, clean energy narrative revolution that was taking place. And, you know, that was only like a subsector of the population. But now we're looking at something that like every single industry that currently exists. And you can be, I mean, one of the biggest questions that anyone asks right now is, you know, how is AI affecting my job or my business? So yeah, I'd say start using it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just to touch on that point again, you know, we've spoken to some older industries where, you know, the fear of change and technological kind of upkeep holds them back. And then you've got some younger industries where everyone's very kind of progressive mavericks. They're willing to jump on new things. But for anyone, we go into these conversations and we map out a kind of a pathway of that high leverage, you know, and automation or whatever it may be. But then we break it down to the smallest first step of that. And we say, look, the first thing we're going to do is just implement this one little AI integration or tool or whatever, get you using it, get you comfortable, see the value, and then we can do the next, then we can do the next. And that just helps distill a lot of that fear and helps with adoption. Because again, if you go in and you say, okay, we're changing how you do everything, no one wants that. No one wants to learn how to redo everything at their job. But if you just chip away at it, it just helps with that upkeep and gets everyone comfortable and allows people to actually use and get value out of it.
Definitely. And then that, like, you know, reduces, you know, that the whole we're not delusional when we approach companies as well. As you said, it's like, what is the low hanging fruit? What's going to have the biggest, like, you know, leverage? Like, what is the biggest leverage lever that we can do? And then, you know, we're not promising to automate everything, but let's just try buy back some of your time.
Yeah, that's kind of the play, at least for the next little bit.
And I suppose, I mean, I think that's kind of us.
Yeah.
That's kind of touching on time, but for anyone who wants to reach out to us and, you know, discuss general AI automations, I mean, we're both on X. This is our attempt to, like, boost the socials, and we're going to keep doing stuff like this. But, you know, www.goldenpath.ai is where you can find us. Well, thegoldenpath.ai. I got to get used to, like, plugging those things in.
But yeah, just reach out, have a chat. We'll show you what all of this can do for you.
And also be a good idea to actually start, like, speaking with, like, bringing people in, whether that be like industry experts or businesses we've worked with. We'll do some stuff like that. We're just figuring out. We're just walking the golden path.
Yeah, getting the reps in.
Perfect.